सरकार ने मैप और जियो स्पेशल डेटा को
And in India, policymakers are generally
at the National Geospatial Policy 2022.
Google Mapathon. You heard it right. He exactly submitted the geospatial mapping on and around Pathankot. 28 December 2022, the day in which the Ministry of Home Affairs introduced the National Geospatial Policy. This was 6 years after the bill was introduced in 2016. Now, we know that many laws take a lot of time before they become acts. But what's the story behind this one? Let's take a look. Post the attacks in February 2016, Mr. Lokesh Sharma filed a petition at the Delhi High Court alleging the use of Google Maps by the terrorists in the Pathankot attack. He even stated that this record of maps was obtained by Google through a competition they conducted in 2013, namely Google Mapathon. What exactly is Google Mapathon and what is the history behind it? In March 2013, Mr. Tarun Vijay, the MP of Rajya Sabha, said that through the Mapathon conducted by Google between 12th of Feb to 25th of March 2013, Google had managed to collect a lot of sensitive geospatial data. Now, this sensitive geospatial data was on and around many different sites, including Pathankot, and this was submitted to Google as a part of competition by many resident Indians who took part in it. So this is a strange part, that actually it is Indians who gave this data to Google and this was part of a competition. Surprisingly so, there was a gentleman by the name Vishal Saini who won this competition, and the reason he won it was, in fact, his submission for the competition was the Google mapping on and around the areas of Pathankot. Yes, you heard it right. He exactly submitted the geospatial mapping on and around Pathankot. Subsequent to the allegations made by the Honorable MP, the Delhi police started investigating whether the giant Google did really violate any of the laws. In fact, they even conducted Survey of India. In response to all of this, the Google spokesperson said that Survey of India has contacted them and they responded saying that they are ready to meet Survey of India to solve any of their queries. They have not violated any of the existing laws at that time. At that time, there was only one law called the Indian Mapping Act of 2005. This act was not really as effective as the geospatial policy that stands today. Subsequently, there was a CBI investigation conducted on this matter. The CBI, upon investigating for over a year, finally concluded that there is no clear evidence of Google violating any law. Essentially, the law was not comprehensive enough to cover any such act as an offense. But one thing it did was that in 2013, the Mapathon conducted by Google was the last one it ever did. Subsequently, in the year 2016, Google even discontinued its MapMaker tool, the tool which was used by the participants to submit their entries for the Mapathon. This was a fairly good feat achieved back then. But going forward, challenge was waiting. In 2016, the Pathankot attack reopened this particular situation. By March, the Government of India and through Ministry of Home Affairs introduced a draft guidelines named as the Geospatial Information Bill 2016. This was open for public comments. The whole purpose of this bill was to ensure that India's mapping and geospatial data is in secured hands and nobody can conduct any geospatial survey without the approval of Government of India's body. They proposed to appoint a body called as the Security Vetting Authority. This would be an independent government department which would be responsible for making all clearances related to geospatial matters. However, this very point became a matter of debate as it meant that the turf of multiple departments was under threat. You see, every particular department has got certain approval authority on security matters, be it Ministry of Defense, Ministry of Finance, Ministry of Home Affairs, or all of those. A security vetting authority proposed over here was supposed to attract members from all these departments and be a single window for clearance of geospatial security matters. But since it was seen as infringement of turf, not many departments or not many politicians and the policymakers approved of this. Hence, what we really saw was a case of stalemate, and this policy remained in the back burner till 2021. 2021 is when bill in a reformed way was introduced, and 2022 December this was passed and finally became the Geospatial Information Act 2022. What was the biggest takeaway from this? In India, things move slow, and in India, policymakers are generally wary of making type 2 errors. The National Geospatial Act 2022 finally came into place, and as expected, the Security Vetting Authority was nowhere to be seen. Instead, department-wise, there would be a need for clearance. So, as expected, there was no single window clearance available. Also, the approach of this act was very different from the policy that was initially proposed. Instead of assigning or restricting any company, they decided to set up a negative list of sensitive attributes. That means the Department of Science and Technology would now mandate a negative list that cannot be marked on any map. And any geospatial data dealing with these specific attributes requires the regulation before acquisition or use. It essentially meant that one needed to seek the permission from relevant government departments like the Ministry of Defense for mapping sector, or for border regions, or certain sensitive areas. The list of negative attributes was designed by determined by a committee appointed by the Department of Science and Technology. This was called GDPDC. So you see, friends, this was not a case of actually consensus. Everybody had a consensus on what to do. It was the mode of implementation or modus operandi which was under debate, and that is what really took a lot of time. However, the good part is that this time violations attracted severe penalty. The fines imposed could be as high as 100 crores and jail term up to 3 years for even the CEO of the company which is responsible for violation. So the gist of all of this is that 2013 we had identified a problem, but India did not solve it proactively. Finally, we acted on a reaction of a Pathankot attack, as severe as a Pathankot attack, killing many of our army personnel. That is when we took cognizance and acted on this. Hence, I reiterate my conclusion. Policymakers are wary of making type 2 errors. They are more comfortable of an event happening and using that as an opportunity, or rather an excuse to reform. Why does India have to wait for an excuse to bring in reforms? Why do we always not act proactively and bring in the reforms that we needed? Think and please comment on the same.